Hello, and welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Moana.
First, we wanted to say a great big thank you to friends who had posted on our Facebook wall about feedback for this. We got a lot of great feedback, including some from some great people you should check out. We have Brian Taylor, who is a playwright and a writer. Go check out his Facebook page. He has a lot of great stuff out there, as well as Corey from the Unpopular Culture podcast, and a few others as well. So want to say a special thank you to them. We didn't ask them to give permission to read those, so we're not going to read those. But if you would like to have your comments read on the air, or if you would like to have any of the feedback, we'll give you all that information at the end of the episode. So, a really quick review and summary. I'm pretty sure that most of you have already seen it. If not, it's on Netflix, so you can go watch it now.
Right now.
Yes.
Do it right now.
Pause it, and then we'll be here when you get back.
Yes. Okay.
And we're back.
Okay.
All right, and so really quick summary and then a review. So my summary is a non-traditional Disney princess movie where the tribe chief's daughter saves the ocean and the world.
That was really brief. That was like as brief as you could get.
Basically, yes.
Okay. Well, then I'll go a little bit longer. Moana is, as she says, she's not a princess. She is the chief's daughter. There's a difference, and really, like, there actually is a difference. Like, if you look up between the difference. But anyway. And she felt like she was meant for something more, and her parents were leading her down one path, but she didn't like it. So then she goes on in an adventure, and then she goes out into the sea, and she gets wet a few times, and there's a chicken. I don't know. I'm adding more to the story, Miguel. Don't give me that look.
You're just retelling the entire story.
No, I'm not.
I
said she gets wet, and there's a chicken. Like, I don't know how
that's superfluous information.
Anyway, and then one thing led to another, and she saves the day.
Okay. With the help of a demigod.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and friendship.
With the power of friendship. Is that kind of like the power of bleach?
No, it's not quite as powerful as bleach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in high school, we used to make up these silly little things, especially when we were in chemistry. Going over the bonds. Mm-hmm. My name is Bond. Ionic bond.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. It's high school. It's the banter, so not really good. But that's a part of who I am, and so that's a part of what I am going to be talking about today.
And being silly and adding frivolous things is part of who I am.
Okay. So I wanted to start with know who you are. Mm-hmm. Really, I wanted to start this with names, because primarily names mean quite a bit in the narrative context. We've talked about this before in other episodes, especially around things that are very based on naming their characters.
Oh yeah, well, Harry Potter, like the majority of the names in there, like she chose those names for a specific reason.
Oh yeah. I mean, Dolores Umbridge basically means pain. Mm-hmm. And, there's Moana is no stranger to that as well. I mean, Moana literally means ocean. Mm-hmm. So it's no wonder the ocean chose Moana, the ocean, to save the ocean.
I just find it funny that her parents were like, well, not her mom, it's more her dad, was like so hard set and like, no, you cannot go out into the ocean. But I named you Ocean. But I don't like it. But I like it enough to name you after it.
Yeah, and I think we've had this conversation before, but I can't really remember if we've had it on air or not. But In the book Freakonomics, and I'm sure that they probably covered it in their own podcast, but names do mean a lot, and they do really
they can almost
impact what you're going to do.
Yeah, and they can almost influence your life. They can. There's been studies that have been shown that your name can influence your life, which is why names are so important. And picking names that are going to benefit your child it's almost a necessity.
Yeah, and there was a great bit by Jimmy Kimmel this week by people who were named correctly for their jobs. Mm-hmm. Like the volunteer firefighter whose name is Les McBurney. I think that was hilarious. But he's a prime example for this. I mean, he is Les McBurney, and so he's going to make sure that there is less McBurneys. So, I mean, this is very much in context for my own name, which, what I chose to do with my life and where I felt my calling was both of my names, my first name and my middle name being Miguel Benjamin, which is Benjamin is son of justice or son of the right hand, which, is a slang for justice. Mm-hmm. The right hand is justice. But Miguel or Michael means who is like God. So my whole life has really kind of revolved around, seeking justice in a godlike fashion, as being someone who seeks justice in things, for all people, is to help people in a way, is to really go for these things. And this is why social justice means so much to me, that it's not just, an internet fad for me. It's not just something that, I am, one day going to post something on my Facebook and I don't do anything about. No, I'm going to actually try to seek it out and try to find something to try to help make people's lives better. Which, that's, you can really determine your own name kind of thing, is that I know that there are people who would rather go by their middle names, who have chosen their own names, and which is completely all right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But your name does mean a lot to your self-identity. And that's what I see, throughout Moana is Moana finding her self-identity, is not just Moana, but also Maui trying to find his own self-identity.
Yeah, because he was definitely looking in the wrong place all along. And,
well, you also have Grandma, who was, saying...
She's very secure in her identity.
Yeah, but she was also, kind of playing, saying, well, if this is not going to be what happens in the afterlife, then I chose the wrong tattoo. So, that's kind of like her thing, is that her own self-identity, and very much in the tribal tattoos also, it shows on their body what they're meant to do, what they are called to do. Mm-hmm. And there's that, I think there's that big difference, and I think this is a big movie for people who are meant to help people.
Yeah.
Especially those in ministry, if that, because it's really about that difference between calling and self-identity.
Yeah.
We have a unique experience, with my own life, and really kind of myself experiencing firsthand, and for you, kind of supporting me through all of that, is really how much of my calling and my own self-identity were wrapped up in the same thing. And for most people in ministry, that's kind of how it is. Mm-hmm. Is, you really become what you were called to do. And, and I think there's that pivotal moment there with Moana when she's yelling at the ocean, is that, why did you choose me? Choose somebody else now. Take it from me. Take it. And for me, it's a very Christ-like Garden of Gethsemane moment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can see that.
If I am not meant to die, take this cup from me, kind of thing. And I think that, if you have not had one of these moments in ministry, if you have not experienced this, man, more power to you. But, this was almost an everyday occurrence for me. And even afterwards is that, questioning God, I really felt like I was abandoned afterwards. Mm-hmm. We talked about this in the Supernatural episode a little bit, but, I felt abandoned. That, God, why did you give this to me? Why did you call me to do this if you're not letting me do this?
Yeah.
And
it was tough to watch, too. I mean, like me, my identity didn't ever really tie in with my job. Like, that's just not, like, who I am. I'm not Kathy, the customer service rep. Like, I am Kathy, the, like, mega nerd. I am Kathy, the, like, bubbly blonde from Montana. Like, that's more my identity. And, like, going back to the names, like, my name, Catherine Ann, means pure, merciful. Mm-hmm. And I do like to imagine that I do try to be as merciful as I can, like, throughout my life, even in customer service. I mean, that's essentially what people are going to you for. Like, hey, I messed up, or I need help. Can you help me?
Yep.
Like, isn't that in itself, like, being merciful, saying, okay, I will help you?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I really wanted to include that in my my blog that I wrote about with caring, is that caring is hard, because even in customer service, that people tend not to see them as human beings.
Yep.
And I mean, it's really hard to care for people. It's really, especially if they don't see you, if they if they look right through you and just see you for what you can do for them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's why Maui got so caught up in that as well, is that, he just saw himself for what he could do for humanity. That's the reason why that humanity loved him, is because of what he could do for them. So we've got this whole identity crisis, which is plaguing almost every character in the movie. Yeah. And I just love I think it's just a few lines, but it's that really kind of climax line that Moana sings, or that climax song that Moana sings to, I can't remember the name of the island, or the
I can't
goddess.
either. The big lava creature who turns into the island. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
But she says, They have stolen your heart. This does not define you. Mm-hmm. And I think this is ultimately at the heart of each identity crisis thing that is going on, and it's really because of the pain that each of us have gone through. Is if we let it define us, if we let it define who we are, then it turns us into monsters.
Yeah.
And, she was given back the heart. She was, kind of, this is what kind of the crux of the entire movie is that, you can't let that pain define you, that you got to move on from it. You got to, really embrace who you are, and embrace, what, you've been called to do, whether it's, in the traditional context, or you got to make a new context for it. Mm-hmm. And, that's what Moana did, she was tasked, her calling was to get Maui to go put it back.
Yeah.
But Maui left her, so she was going to go do it afterwards. And she just reframed the context. Yep.
And even then, like, she was pretty much doing it on her own at the end there. I mean, Maui was there more as a distraction than anything, until she realized, oh, wait, I need to find the spiral. Well, there's a spiral on the lava creature, so I guess that's where I need to put it. So,
yep. So yeah, it really boils down to, not letting things kind of drag you down, and kind of moving on from there, and keep mm-hmm. going at what you're doing. And so it really kind of,
and if somebody robs you of who you think you are, like, no, you're still you.
Yeah.
You're still you. And you don't let anybody have that power.
And that's something that I'm still learning to do myself, to use a Turner phrase from another Disney movie, is to let it go.
Oh, geez.
So, I mean, it's about both persistence and, like I said, knowing this from firsthand experience. And, in my case, learning to let it go and to move on, to keep doing what makes you you.
Yep.
Is essential to that, and I think we'll come back to that later. But this brings up the other big theme of the movie, which is persistence.
Yeah, and the fact that in this movie, like, this movie was all about, like, female heroes in my mind. Like, this was the first Disney movie where she didn't, I mean, yeah, she had, it was more like Maui was her sidekick, if anything. Like, she was definitely in the lead. And that, you don't see that very often. Like, I know that Frozen kind of turned heads because there was no, like, quote-unquote prince, but there was still a few, like, character, like, Disney tropes in there, whereas Moana doesn't have a few of those. One of the things, too, that I really liked in Moana that they kept on portraying is that Moana kept on pushing Maui, kept on pushing forward with what she thought that she needed to do. And that is a very good trait to have. And unfortunately, that kind of persistence and idea is not looked very well upon for, like, little girls. Like, little girls are always told not to be bossy. Even in the workplace, I've heard people say, yeah, she's good at her job, but she's really bossy.
Yeah, it doesn't really go the same way for men. If they're like that, if they keep pushing like that, they're seen as persistent. Yep. Or
like empowered.
What's the A word? I'm looking for
assertive.
An A word. Not assertive per se, but ambitious.
Ambitious, yeah. Yes, yep. But I have to say, it's really empowering to finally see this kind of power dynamic. Like, she definitely has, she has the disadvantage in all of this. Like, Maui is a demigod. Like, he could just, like, leave her, like, really.
Yeah.
But she was very, very, very insistent and kept on going back to him and said, no, this is what you're going to do. Why? Because this is the way to fix it. And I want to make sure it's fixed because my family and my tribe is dying. So you need to help fix this. Like, she knew it. She's very goal-oriented. She knew what she wanted, and she was going to go after it.
Yeah.
And another thing in this, too, at the very beginning, what I really liked was that it wasn't her, like, father that was telling her, like, yes, you were meant for something bigger. Like, go pursue your dreams. Like, if anything, her father, of course, was the one that was like, no. Like, you got to stay out of the ocean. And we find out later it's because he lost his brother in the ocean, which would, make sense as to why he's scared of it. But it was her grandmother who was raising her up.
Yeah. Who
was the one that was like, I know that this is how you feel. You feel like you have more that you got to do in life. Like, you're not going to be happy just stuck on this island. Like, sure, you're good at it, and, like, everybody knows you're good at it. You do enjoy certain aspects of it, but you know that you could do more. So why don't you do it? Just do it. And so the idea of women raising up women to empower them, like, is so needed. I mean, we're a lot better than we used to be, but there's still this idea that women, for some reason, like, have to compete with other women in order to get into those higher paying jobs. Whereas, like, men, on the other hand, like, throughout history, they've always been in the boardroom. Like, yes, they do compete, like, at a certain level, but it's different. Like, it's not like, I want to be the first man to be in this position. Yeah. Whereas women, it's like, I'm going to compete with this other woman in order to get this position because I want to be the first. And I feel like that really drives the competition, which also perpetuates the idea of women being bossy.
Well, and it's also, like we talked a bit about last week, and we touched on a little bit with the systems in place in Handmaid's Tale, is that there are those systems in place to make sure that women are constantly at war with each other. And it's not something that, men particularly set out to do. No. There are some in power that are actually perpetuating these things, but it's more, it's because nobody really wants to change things to make things a little bit better because the status quo works for them. And
by women empowering the jobs that men have traditionally held.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of men feel that that's threatening and kind of like to stir the pot sometimes, like making stupid comments like, oh, well, are you okay with her leading this? Like, I've had that happen before, like, said to me before, like, oh, are you okay with so-and-so, like, taking the lead on this? I was like, yeah. Like, why wouldn't I be? Like, one, I wasn't really interested in it to begin with. I mean, if it was offered to me, then yeah, I would take it, but, like, I don't care. Like, good for her. If, she wants to, have more work piled upon her, then I don't care. I do have to say I'm very lucky to actually work at a company with a female CEO because I feel like she is going to bring new eyes to the table. Mm-hmm. And she already has. I mean, they've done a lot of new changes, and it's all because of her. I know that at one point in time she was looking over at like the maternity and possibly paternity leave as well too, which is also really important. And I think with more women having higher positions in the workforce, that maternity leave and paternity leave are going to be more available to people because women are the ones that traditionally it's affected more.
Well, yeah, and that's something that I really think has been left out, mm-hmm. considering that we in the United States are one of the only developed countries in the world that doesn't have it. One of only 2 countries mm-hmm. in the entire world that does not have family leave for these things. And even in some countries, men get way more than is allowed in this country. In fact,
there's nothing.
Yeah, most men need to take their vacation time.
Yep.
So I think we talked about this too last week with the Handmaid's Tale a little bit.
Probably a little bit. I don't care. I will talk about it all the time. Everybody needs to know how I feel about this issue because it's really important and the family dynamic is changing.
Yeah.
And higher ups need to realize that this is what people want now. And people are going to be more happy with that. And with the other countries doing that as well, it's just proof that there is room for everybody to be able to do that as well and still grow.
Yeah.
And I also have to say with the women wanting to go up the corporate ladder, that really, me as an ambassador for all womankind, which I really can't say that I am, but just for this moment, out to the men out there in the world, there is room for all. We are not out there to steal all of the jobs, obviously. We just want to be able to be heard and have a more equal playing field in the job market. And in the movie market, for goodness sake. But... Oh, and also I said this before, I think, but another thing that I really, really loved about there being a female hero is that this is one of the few stories with a female hero where there is no love interest. Period. The only coupling is Moana's parents, and that already happened. We come into the scene and they're already a couple. There's no even a hint of her or Maui having the feels for each other.
Yeah.
And that's also really refreshing too because it goes to show that you can have a successful movie and not have that in the storyline. Women don't need to have that in order to enjoy the movie.
Yeah, the romantic subplot.
Yes. In fact, it's really refreshing to have a female protagonist not be involved in any way, shape, or form in any kind of love interest. It's really nice.
Yeah. Well, considering that this is coming out the same year that Wonder Woman has come mm-hmm. out, and granted that I haven't seen that yet, but it seems like from the trailers that there's a love interest in the movie, but...
I know, people still say it's a great movie, so I'm kind of excited to see it, because I was really nervous since, DC has promised us a lot of good things, and they keep disappointing me time and time again.
Well, unfortunately, Zack Snyder does only one thing well, and that is action scenes. Granted, it wasn't that great between Batman and Superman, but when The Batman warehouse scene, I mean, that was probably the only redeeming factor of that movie. So, yeah, I mean, I think that is something that is dreadfully lacking in a lot of cinema, is that, a strong, powerful woman without this, need for love interest.
Well, and think about it. Like in Moana, you can take the storyline, make Moana a boy, and it's the same story.
Yep.
There's nothing changes. Like no one is going off like, oh, well, you're a girl, so you can't do this. Like that's not what her dad is saying. Her dad isn't like telling her she can't do it because she's a girl. He's saying you can't go out into the ocean because the ocean is dangerous. Period. So, and you don't hear any of that. I don't think there's ever once in Moana where people are like, well, you're a girl, so you can't do this.
Yeah, I don't think so. But then again, we were babysitting while we were watching it too.
Yeah, so we were a little distracted. But really, if there is something in there, even just like one line, the general overarching storyline, you could just whip out genders and it would still be the same movie, the same plot, everything. And I feel like maybe that's what Hollywood needs to do now with their movies, like focus more on that. Like if I take the role, swap genders, is it still going to be the same storyline?
Instead of the Bechdel test? Mm-hmm. Which, if you're not familiar with the Bechdel test, there are a lot of sexist movies that do actually pass the Bechdel test.
Yes, there is a lot.
Let's see. The Bechdel test is 3 questions, and I think it's: are there more than one woman in this movie? Do the women talk about the main characters that are women? Do they talk about more than just men? And there is another question, and I can't remember what it is.
I'm looking it up right now. Okay.
All right. So, but I agree with you that you can change genders of almost anybody in this movie, and it would be perfectly all right. Oh, granted, the singing voices wouldn't be the same.
Well, yeah, but take Shiny for example. You could put that into a woman, and it would still be the same song.
But Jermaine Clemens was probably the perfect person to be singing that too. Because it was goofy and it was right down Flight of the Conchords alley, It's which reminded me this morning of a Starbucks customer that I had once that would almost every single time he came in would say that I looked like Jermaine, which I'm like, I don't have a gap in my teeth, but my nose isn't as long. But it is a big nose.
There's only 3 questions in that test.
Yes.
Has to have at least 2 women in it, not just one. At least 2 women.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Who talk to each other and who also have something about something other than a man. So they can't just be like, oh, hey, like you went on a date. Like, how was your date? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it has to be like, oh, well, let's solve this problem that has nothing to do with relationships.
Yeah, and it's a lot more about character development. And the thing is, character development can be the same for a woman that it is for a man, because we're all human beings. Granted, biologically, women's brains are built differently than men's are, and that's okay. But the thing is, they look the same. There's no way that you can actually tell by looking at it. I think you have to take special scans of the brain to actually figure that out. But
I think part of it has to do with the way girls and boys are brought up, and so it wires your brain differently.
Yeah, the concepts.
Yeah, like for boys, you have to be strong, can't cry, all of that stuff. Whereas women, it's more you have to be sensitive, you have to be nurturing. So that if you push that on at an early age, it's just going to automatically wire your brain like that if you're pushing those concepts on kids that young.
Yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably why, there are so many of these gender stereotypes is because we have those concepts, we have those constructs that we have made for ourselves in place, and that it's hard to rewire our brains from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good test. We're going to call that the Kathy test.
Yeah.
For movies now.
Okay.
Can you swap this role this role's gender, and it'd still be okay.
Yeah, and still be the same plot line.
Still be the same plot line, same movie.
Mm-hmm.
Should we do that? Well, yeah, I don't think you can do that with sexuality as well, but
No.
you can just swap the genders. That I know there's an internet rule about that, but I can't remember what rule number that is. But
I have no idea what you're talking about, so you'll have to point me in the right direction.
yeah, there's. I'm sure there's some internet person out there saying it's rule this, and they're probably going to say it applies to porn. It doesn't apply to there's
What? Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
Are we going to have to put a
No.
age warning on this now?
No. It's just there's. You probably should put an age warning on all of the internet, but not this one. This is just internet rules that are made by some Redditor or some person on 4chan that get out there. So
Yeah, I don't follow the 4chan. That's a little bit too much for me.
yeah. But I like the Kathy rule. I think that we should start
Thanks.
throwing that into each of our podcasts
Yeah.
each week.
I'll have to think about it some more. Like what other rules have to go into the Kathy rule? Because I feel like there may be some more stuff that I'm missing out on.
Well, that will be the Kathy test. This is the Kathy rule.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, the one question to rule them all. And one question to bind them.
Okay, let's move on now.
Yeah, because I'm going to just completely quote the whole
Yes.
Lord of the Rings thing.
Don't do it. I see you're pushing up your glasses, nerd.
Well, that's why we do the show, is because we're nerds.
You may be. I'm not. I'm the coolest cat you've known.
You just actually confirmed at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, whatever.
So where do we go from here is there is a line in the end of that song that I brought up, which is the name of the song is Know Who You Are. But she says, you know who you are. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to bring that up again because I think that there are so many people with that concept of saying that I define myself by what other people think. And it becomes such a controversial issue because they think that they need to define themselves by other people's standards or other people's concepts. And my therapist said something to me that is going to continue to stick in my mind, which I love, which is you do not have to live under the tyranny of someone else's truth any longer. And I think it's very true for everybody, because we all live under the tyranny of somebody else's truth rather than our own truth. Mm-hmm. And this essentially, before she even gave back the gem to the big lava monster goddess, is you saw the lava monster goddess coming down and starting to kind of cool off, and that this is a part of it, is that who you are, what's inside of you. Mm-hmm. Is that she was giving back her heart by confirming that and saying that you're the one to best know this. You're the one to best get you through this. Mm-hmm. I'm just here to give you this gem back.
Yeah.
So, I think it's very true for each of these characters, and that's what the grandmother ghost was saying and kind of given back to Moana, is by saying, you can go home if you want to. I'm still going to be here. Is she was giving her the permission to say, I don't have to do this by everyone else's standards. Mm-hmm. I can do it by my own frame of context. And that's basically the takeaway for me, is that it's not, you're the one that decides your truth. You're the one that decides your own experience. Is you cannot let something tear you down. You can't let it bring you down. You got to let it, add to you.
Well, and that's why, especially for those of us who are in the customer service world, we get some mean stuff said at us. I've had death threats before. I have had people threaten to sue me, which I don't know what they would sue me for, but anyway, and that kind of stuff. If you let those kinds of people get to you, I mean, that may be their truth. They are upset. I understand why they're upset sometimes. I get it. However, they don't need to go that far. Yeah. And I know that they may be that upset, but it's not because of me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the one that made them upset in the first place. Like, it's not me personally who's doing this to them. It's not like, hey, I'm going to now invent this new rule that seems so cruel and mean that it's going to just make everybody mad. It's not me. So that's why, like the other day when I had a particularly like angry person who like threatened death upon me, like everybody was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you fine? Like, how are you feeling?" And I was like, "I'm good." Like, he's not going to hurt me. He doesn't know any information about me besides my first name. He doesn't even know like what location I'm at. Like, why do I have to be worried?
Yeah.
Why?
This is something that it's really difficult for a lot of people to do, especially when they tie in their calling with their self-identity.
Yeah.
Is it's a lot of, well, if it doesn't go well, then of course they take it personally because it's part of who they are. And I think that's essential to be said to those who care for people, especially nurses and doctors and clergy and lay ministers and basically anybody who really
heals in the healing field
and cares for people is just let them know, you see them, that maybe the reason that they failed isn't their fault, but you still see them, that you understand that they're probably hurting too because they really wanted to help you. They really wanted to heal you in some way. They wanted to make your life better. They're not out to get your goat, in other words. Or is that the correct term?
I want to say yes, but I'm not 100% on that.
All right. Well, anyway.
Talking about goats, don't toot your own horn.
Okay.
There's another thing we could take away from this if we're going to continue on with corny phrases.
Sure.
But that's with Maui, that's his big thing. Like, he comes out right out of the gate. Of course, he's like, "Yes, I'm awesome. I know you're here just to welcome me and to worship me. I totally get it because I also know that I am awesome. Thank you very much." And she's just like, no, that's not what I was here for. And it's, I don't know, there's people out there, I know everybody knows one of these people who do think that they are the best thing on this earth next to ice cream. Like, they, honest to God, think that they are great and everything that they do is great. It can be a factor of a lot of things, like maybe their parents boosted up their ego so much to where now they do think that they are like super awesome at everything. Or it could just be that maybe that's what they need to tell themselves in order to make themselves feel better because, of something that has happened in the past. But it's okay to not be awesome.
Yeah.
It is. It's totally okay to, I mean, you can have awesome moments in your life, obviously, but it's fine not to be awesome. You don't have to be awesome to be loved.
Especially if that's who you are, just embrace who you are. And
it's so, I have to say this, it's so annoying when you get that person who's just like, "Oh yes, well, I finished the project in like 10 seconds flat, and then I was able to bake a cake, and then the cake was so amazing that some amazing chef came over to my house and told me how amazing it was."
Yeah, and I think that we all want recognition, and we want other people to recognize us as well. But I think, this is the kind of thing where it's a little bit of that unrequited love kind of thing, is that in essence most of the world has forgotten about Maui, and he's kind of like holding on to his former glory. And I think this
like
is
the
also
football days, like the high school football days.
Well, it's also kind of the way that I think that most Christians are with God and defending God against, people who are agnostic or atheist, is that, saying, "Oh, well, God is so great." And their biggest defense against the whole, "Well, God is so great" thing with the atheists and agnostics are, well, then why is all the suffering in the world? And, it's ultimately, it's because we chose it as human beings, is that we're still choosing it as human beings because we can't embrace who we are. We're so insecure about ourselves that we lash out at other people.
Yep, we are causing most of the suffering in the world.
Yeah, and so that's where I think that this bragging comes from. A lot of it comes from is that insecurity is that, well, I was great once. And this is what I think about some Christians as well, is that, well, God was great once. God did all this stuff that's in the Bible, and they don't see it in their own lives nowadays, so they can't really point to something concrete in essence to really defend God's existence.
Yeah.
But I think that's just because we're all insecure, and that's okay.
Because we're human.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about finding your own way. One of the things that I used to love to tell teenagers was I used the movie clip from City Slickers, was when he was talking with Curly and learning the secret of life, and Curly says, "It's this," and he holds up one finger, and then he says, "What, your finger?" He says, "No, it's this. It's one thing." And that the thing is different for everyone else. Is that when you're in a life or death situation, it comes down to just that. That's the only thing you think about. That. It's it's your finding, and that's your way. And I think that's the same thing with almost anything in life. That's the same as it is with God. If you have not had an experience with God, or if you think about your relationship with God, that there is that one thing that brings you closer, or that one thing that really kind of shows you that God exists in your own life. It's finding your own way. And sometimes it's not inside a building. That, sometimes it's outside, sometimes it's hiking, sometimes it's, giving food to the hungry, or visiting people in prison, or whatever it may be, that, you've got to allow people to find their own way. And I think that's very evident in this movie as well, with, the father is that not letting his daughter go out into the ocean. Is you named her Ocean, for goodness sake. Let her find her own way.
I know. This is your fault, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's kind of Moana at that crux moment there with Grandma Ghost. So what I'm going to keep calling her. With Grandma Ghost is kind of Grandma Ghost saying, find your own way. Is if you want to go home, I'm going to support that. I'm going to be with you. And I think that's what people need to say to each other, is that you got to find your own way. I'm here to support you. And I think,
but really support. Don't just say like, I'm here to support you, and then disappear off of the planet like so many people have done.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about parenting and stuff like that with our son. Is that he's going to make his own choices in life, and some of them we're not going to be happy about, and others we're going to be good with. But we got to let him find his own way. Anyway, with all that being said, we need to wrap it up because we're running out of time quickly. So if you guys want to give feedback, you can do that on our social media. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Tumblr. I actually installed Tumblr on my phone so that I can be on it more often. So if you give any Tumblr feedback, great, I'm going to see it. You can also call our Google Voice phone number, which is 720-372-3879. You can email us at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com. Find our website, thehonestfaith.com. You can also check out our Patreon page and consider being a patron of ours and supporting us, because
you love us.
Yeah, we do enjoy doing this, but it is kind of a costly habit for us for recording podcasts and sending it out into the world.
Yep.
So I invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.